I wasn't born emotionless. I became this way. The world didn't teach me to control my emotions, it forced me to. I used to feel everything too deeply. Every word cut through me. Every rejection burned like fire. Every silence felt like betrayal. I cared too much, and that was my biggest mistake. Because the world doesn't reward emotions, it uses them. The more I cared, the weaker I became. I thought empathy made me human, it only made me easy to break. People don't destroy you with force, they destroy you with reaction. They observe, they study, and then they pull the exact string that makes you crumble. And I gave them every string. Then I found something that changed me, not instantly, not magically, but slowly, painfully. The Ayanokoji challenge. It wasn't some online trend or a motivational slogan. It was a mindset test, a psychological transformation, a war between the version of me that reacted to everything and the version that watched in silence. The first rule is simple: don't react. No matter what happens, no matter what someone says, no matter how much it burns, stay calm. At first, I failed. Every single day, someone insulted me, and my mind instantly fought back. My ego screamed, "Defend yourself." But every time I reacted, I realized how easily I gave them power. They controlled my peace with just a few words. And that realization was humiliating. So I started again. The next time someone tried to provoke me, I just stared. No expression, no emotion, just silence. And in that silence, I saw something unexpected. They broke first. People can't handle calmness. They can't manipulate someone they can't read. When you stop giving them emotional access, they lose their control. Days passed, then weeks. I felt something inside me changing. The noise faded, the anxiety quieted down. For the first time in years, I could think clearly. I wasn't running from emotions, I was mastering them. The challenge wasn't about becoming cold, it was about becoming in control. You begin to notice how most people live on autopilot. They're emotional puppets, happy one moment, destroyed the next, depending on how others treat them. They mistake sensitivity for depth. But Ayanokoji's mindset taught me that true depth is stillness. Stillness that can't be disturbed. I started studying myself like an app's opponent. Every reaction, every feeling, every thought, I analyzed it. Why did this person's opinion affect me? Why did I feel anger when someone ignored me? Every emotion had a root, and once I found the root, I pulled it out. Slowly, I became free. You realize that peace isn't about having no problems. It's about not letting problems control you. You stop being emotional because you finally see how emotion blinds you. Anger, jealousy, overthinking, they all come from one thing: attachment. Attachment to validation, to expectations, to illusions. I learned to let go of those attachments one by one. I stopped expecting people to understand me. I stopped explaining myself to those who didn't listen. I stopped chasing respect. Respect comes when you no longer need it. The world tries to tell you emotion is strength, but that's only half the truth. Emotion with control is strength. Emotion without control is chaos. And most people are walking chaos loud, fragile, desperate to be seen. But the calm ones, they're invisible until they choose to appear. That's what I became. Invisible, silent, controlled. Not because I was hiding, but because I was watching, observing, understanding. Every interaction became data. Every reaction became a weakness I could remove. There's a strange power in silence. It makes people reveal themselves. They talk more to fill the void. They expose their insecurities, their motives, their true nature while you remain still. The less you speak, the more you learn. The more you observe, the less you fear. And once fear disappears, power takes its place. I stopped fearing loss. I stopped fearing rejection. I stopped fearing loneliness. Because when you reach a certain level of self-control, solitude becomes a weapon. It becomes the space where you sharpen your mind, build your strength, and find clarity. I remember one night during this challenge, sitting in complete darkness. No phone, no distractions, no sound, just me and my thoughts. At first, it was unbearable. The mind starts screaming when it loses stimulation. But then, something shifts. The thoughts slow down. You start seeing yourself clearly, all your weaknesses, insecurities, illusions. and it hurts, but it's necessary. That's when I understood Ayanokoji's true philosophy to master others. You must first master yourself. If you're controlled by your emotions, you're predictable. If you're predictable, you're weak. That's why he never shows emotion, not because he doesn't feel, but because no one deserves to see what he feels. His control isn't robotic, it's strategic. It's power disguised as indifference. I started living that way. Every day. One rule: control the mind before the mind controls me. When anger came, I studied it. When sadness came, I accepted it, but didn't let it drown me. I learned to pause before reacting. That pause, that single moment, is where power exists. Soon, people around me started noticing. You've changed. You seem different. They didn't understand. I wasn't becoming heartless. I was just done letting the world play with my emotions like a toy. In this state, life feels different. You don't overthink conversations. You don't chase attention. You don't fear losing people. You simply exist, aware, stable, and untouchable. Most people fear detachment because they confuse it with numbness. But detachment is freedom. You can still care, but from distance. You can still love, but without dependence. That's what emotionless truly means. Not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. The Ayanokoji challenge stripped away everything: fake smiles, fake friendships, fake confidence. It left only truth. And truth is cold, but liberating. You realize that most of your pain wasn't caused by others. It was caused by your expectations of them. The world won't change for you. People won't always treat you right. Life won't go easy on you. But when you stop expecting softness from reality, you stop getting hurt by it. You accept things as they are, and that acceptance makes you stronger than 99% of people, still fighting their emotions. You no longer try to control everything. You control yourself, and that's enough. The more emotionless I became, the more powerful I felt. Not because I stopped feeling, but because feelings stopped ruling me. I could see people's manipulation attempts clearly now. Guilt, flattery, threats, none of it worked anymore. I had become what I once feared untouchable. The strange thing about emotional control is that it makes you calm even in chaos. Someone yells, you remain silent. Someone betrays you, you smile. Someone leaves, you don't chase. Because you know everything external is temporary, but control lasts. And that's when I finally understood Ayanokoji, not as a character, but as a mirror reflecting the truth, that mastery doesn't come from strength, it comes from restraint. In a world screaming for attention, he remains silent. In a world addicted to validation, he stays invisible. In a world full of noise, he listens. That's not weakness. That's power in its purest form. By the time I reached this point, I wasn't just controlling my emotions, I had redefined them. The version of me who reacted impulsively, who felt anger, fear, or sadness so deeply that it consumed him, was gone. I was no longer a puppet to feelings, no longer an easy target for manipulation. I had become a different kind of being, a mind that could observe without interference, a presence that could exist without vulnerability. The Ayanokoji challenge had not only stripped away my emotional dependence, it had revealed my true self, hidden beneath layers of reaction and instinct. At first, solitude terrified me. Sitting alone with my thoughts felt unbearable. I expected chaos, expected panic, expected weakness to rise up inside me. But what I found instead was clarity. The mind, unshackled from the need for external validation, became precise. Every thought had weight, every action was calculated. The more time I spent alone, the sharper my perception became. People assumed they could, read me, influence me, or provoke me, but they couldn't. Not anymore. The challenge demanded more than silence. It demanded observation. I had to learn to watch without judgment, to analyze without attachment, to understand the motives of others without interference from my feelings. Every conversation, every glance, every reaction became a piece of information. Humans are predictable when you understand their patterns. Their desire to be seen, their fear of rejection, their hunger for validation, all of it could be studied, anticipated, and, when necessary, ignored. Emotionlessness is not the absence of feeling, it's the dominance over it. It is realizing that your mind does not exist to serve every impulse or desire. Every emotion has its place, but uncontrolled, it is dangerous. The Ayanokoji challenge forced me to treat emotions like data. Anger was no longer a reaction, it was a signal. Sadness was not despair, it was insight. Fear was not paralysis, it was information. Every feeling became a tool, every impulse an opportunity for mastery. People often ask why someone like Ayanokoji seems untouchable. The answer is deceptively simple. Because he operates outside the rules of typical human behavior. When others see a situation and react, he observes. When they make mistakes, he notes patterns. When they falter, he stays calm. He doesn't need to prove himself. He doesn't need to fight, and he doesn't need to justify his actions. That calm dominance is terrifying for those who have never experienced it, because it cannot be challenged with conventional methods. As I progressed further into the challenge, I began to notice the subtle manipulations in daily life that I had previously ignored. Every comment, every gesture, every social expectation was an attempt to influence my mind. People rarely act out of pure intention. Most are driven by fear, pride, or desire. By removing my own emotional triggers, I became impervious to these forces. I could interact without being affected, speak without revealing vulnerability, and act without allowing my intentions to be anticipated. This transformation was not painless. The world assumes that emotional detachment is easy, that being cold is effortless. It is not. It is excruciating to watch yourself detach from what once gave you comfort. It is terrifying to see the faces of those you cared about and not feel the immediate need to please, defend, or engage. Every relationship, every interaction became a test of control. Each moment of restraint reinforced the reality that power does not come from emotion, it comes from composure. In the past, I had been predictable. A smile could make me trust, a word could make me doubt, and a threat could make me recoil. Now, nothing had that power. I had become a silent observer in a world of chaos, an unmovable presence that could witness turmoil without succumbing to it. This, what being emotionless truly means. Not apathy, not numbness, but absolute self-mastery. It is the freedom to act, think, and live on your own terms, unconstrained by the impulses that enslave most people. One of the most profound realizations of the challenge was understanding how weakness is, disguised as humanity. People glorify emotional expression, equate reaction with sincerity, and call vulnerability strength. But unchecked emotion is the easiest way to lose control. To allow feelings to dictate your decisions is to surrender power. True strength, as I learned, is invisible. It is silent. It is measured not by the volume of your presence, but by the stability of it. The longer I remained in this state, the more I saw the world differently. Social hierarchies, manipulative behaviors, unspoken rules, all of it became clear. Where others struggled, I observed. Where others reacted, I remained still. Where others sought validation, I required none. This clarity created distance, and distance created respect, not forced, not demanded, but inherent. People sense control, even if they cannot articulate it, and the controlled mind naturally becomes a point of reference, whether one desires it or not. There were moments when old instincts tried to resurface. Anger flared, sadness lingered. The desire to be understood crept back into my consciousness. Each time, I recognized it, isolated it, and chose not to act. That choice, repeated thousands of times, was the crucible through which the new self was forged. Emotional independence is not a switch, it is a skill, honed through repeated confrontation with one's own impulses. By the midpoint of the challenge, I realized that detachment also brought insight into manipulation. Where I had once been deceived by flattery or guilt, I could now see intention instantly. Lies, omissions, emotional appeals, all were transparent. The manipulator depends on your engagement, your emotional reaction. Remove that, and their influence collapses. In essence, control over oneself renders others powerless. This principle is deceptively simple, yet most fail to grasp it, because it requires confronting the raw truth of one's own mind. With clarity came confidence, but not arrogance. I understood that the world does not respect the loud, the reactive, or the emotional. It respects results, control, and composure. My newfound emotional mastery allowed me to pursue goals with singular focus, unperturbed by social pressure or interference. I acted decisively because my mind was free. uncluttered by irrational impulses. The final stage of the challenge was embracing silence fully. Not merely refraining from reaction, but refraining from unnecessary action. Every word spoken, every movement made, every choice considered, all carried weight. Energy, focus, and attention are finite resources. To waste them on emotional indulgence is to squander them. By conserving these resources, I became deliberate. Every act was intentional. Every decision had purpose. That level of control over oneself is disarming to others, because it creates unpredictability wrapped in calm. Eventually, I began to understand the philosophical depth of this transformation. Emotions are not inherently dangerous. What is dangerous is allowing them to dictate reality. By mastering emotional response, I gained the ability to shape reality itself. I could navigate conflicts with precision, influence outcomes subtly, and remain unshaken in the face of chaos. What once would have devastated me, betrayal, failure, confrontation became merely data points, analyzed and addressed without panic. The culmination of the Ayanokoji challenge is not in becoming entirely detached, but in becoming untouchable. Emotional control is not for show. It is for survival, for dominance, and for clarity. It is the difference between a life dictated by external forces and a life governed by the self. I had become a silent strategist in every interaction, a calm observer in every storm, a presence that could influence without revealing the hand. By the time I completed the challenge, I was no longer the same person who had begun it. I had been tempered, like steel forged in fire and water. My mind moved with precision. My presence commanded attention. My silence spoke louder than my voice ever could. Most importantly, I had freed myself from the chains of emotional manipulation, and in doing so, I gained a clarity and power that cannot be measured by conventional means. To this day, I carry that lesson. The world will always try to manipulate, distract, and provoke. People will attempt to control you through fear, guilt, flattery, or appeal. But the man who masters himself, who controls his reactions, and who remains emotionless in the face of chaos, he cannot be touched. The Ayanokoji challenge changed me not by removing my humanity, but by refining it. I did not become a robot. I became an observer, a strategist, a calm force in a turbulent world. I became untouchable, not because of strength, but because of understanding. And the truth is simple. Mastery over the self is the ultimate freedom. Once you achieve it, the world loses its power over you. Because from emotional to emotionless is not a loss, it is the evolution of control.